That's Florida-Georgia line and confession. Well, I don't know if many confessions are going to be coming our way here this morning, but we do have our new Senator, John Jasinski, with us from the state capitol on AM Minnesota today. John, thanks for joining us.
You bet, Gordy. Glad I could at least remotely dial in.
Yeah, well, we're discussing maybe a bi-weekly, every other Friday you could come by the studios. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. You know, I spend most of my week Sunday night through Thursdays up here, and then I try and get down in the district on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So happy to stop in when I'm there.
So how are things going up there?
They're going good. You know, very busy, obviously a busy start, and getting up to speed on everything, takes a little bit here. So we've had a lot of informational meetings for us freshman senators to get up to speed on, obviously, so many different areas of government to get involved in versus what I was used to as the mayor. But it's been very interesting, some great people up here, and a lot of excitement to get things done.
Well, I know in talking to other legislators over the years, believe me, before the end of the session, you'll be wondering why certain things are done certain ways.
Yep, no, it's good. There's been great information given out to us to get an understanding of that. But, yeah, it's definitely a big learning curve, as they say up here. It's like drinking water through a fire hose.
That's a good picturesque analogy there.
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Toward the end of the session, what gets most lawmakers is how much they don't really get to read all the bills because everything gets stuffed in the last days of the session,
Yeah, correct. And there's a lot of bills already, moving through the process. So you have to get up to speed on those. And obviously when you introduce a bill versus the final bill version, you have to go through lots of committees and you hear, several things on it. But, yeah, and they will typically, from what I understand, what they're originally drafted at to what they actually end up looking like, go through quite a few modifications.
Right, and you'll get
the House and the Senate. So.
You get a summary of the bill, but, you don't necessarily get every detail of every bill.
Absolutely correct. I think the new health care Senate File 1 was about 29 pages. So, yeah, and there, there's a lot of information in there, that's for sure.
And that got passed and was signed by the governor?
Yeah, I believe he signed it on either late Thursday night or Friday morning. I believe it was Thursday night that got signed. It got passed in Thursday in the Senate. It went through the House and the Senate. There were some differences, so it had to go to conference committee. And then at conference committee, they resolved those, differences, and it got approved in the Senate on Thursday. So it was an exciting thing. Senator Michelle Benson did a great load of work on that to get that going, and we're glad it's moved on. So,
well, it's not over yet, though, right? You still got to make some reforms.
Correct. Well, this bill did have some reforms. There's some reforms in there. It actually opens up. Minnesota is only one state that does not allow for-profit HMOs. The other 49 states do, so they've added that. They've added some surprise billing things about how billing gets done, and they've done some reform. But the biggest part of it was getting the refunds and out to the individual market. But it did include some reforms that the Republican side, basically wanted to make sure we're in that. There's still some more reinsurance things that are hoping to get done, and that hopefully get done in March. But we're continuing not only to get the refunds out, but to get the reforms, which are the most important parts, so that we're not in the same spot next year at this time.
How many committees are you on?
I'm on 4, actually. So I'm the vice chairman of the Transportation Committee, which is an exciting thing for me. Transportation was a big issue when I was running for the Senate, so I got fortunate enough to be appointed as the vice chairman of that. I'm on capital investment, which is another great committee that actually looks at all the spending from the universities to prisons to bridges to you name it, anything that needs to get funded with state money.
Can I get you to hold that thought, John? Because I got to take a break here, and then we're going to come right back, learn his other 2 committees. How's that? Fifth-generation farmer who's right along the Mexican border, so it's kind of a timely topic. They talked a bit about President Trump's hopes for a wall between the United States and Mexico, so I think that might be the show tomorrow. At least that's what we talked about a little earlier. It's Catholic Schools Week. We'll be heading over to Bethlehem Academy on Thursday, Groundhog Day for that. And on Friday, of course, this weekend, the Faribault Lions Club. I'm a member of that. Deb Wasserman, Ray Sanders will be in studio. The annual Pancake and Sausage Feast is coming up on Sunday. We're looking forward to it. We'll be flipping some pancakes out there. I don't know, you'll be home on the weekend, right, John? We may see you out at the Eagles Club.
Absolutely, yep. I'm home on the weekends.
Yeah, the pancakes and the sausage
are far.
Delicious. Yeah, so far. Well, toward the end of the session, you probably won't be.
Probably not. That's why I got an apartment up here, because we spend a lot of time up here. So you'd rather spend time working up here than 2 or 3 hours on the road each day. So
yeah, you told us about the first couple of committees. What are the other committees you're on?
The other two is local government, which local government, and the other one is state government and elections. So I didn't ask for those, but I believe, given my mayor background, is why they wanted me to get on those committees. So getting up to speed on a lot of things. Obviously, I was involved in the local government side, so it'll be a good fit for me on both those committees.
Yeah, and you said that you really wanted to be on transportation, isn't that right?
Yeah, we actually got to rank what we'd like to be on, and my number one rank was transportation. My number two was capital investment. My third one was economic development and jobs, but that conflicted with transportation on some of the scheduling, so I didn't get that one. And then they put me in local and state government. So I'm excited. It's it's going to be a great year of getting involved and learning more things on the state level than I'm used to at a local level. Yeah,
you said that was a priority of yours because a lot of people brought up transportation during the election. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, especially the Highway 14 corridor down there, obviously, more in the Owatonna area, but really making that connection from Owatonna over to Rochester to get that, continued on a 4-lane, and then just seeing more money going into outstate roads and bridges, that's a big thing for us, and, it was frustrating to see how much money gets put in from the outstate Minnesota into light rail transit downtown Minneapolis, and I just, I have always had a tough time with us in outstate Minnesota funding that when they have funding sources within the 5-county and 7-county area in the metro to fund those things up there. So,
yeah, they have a metropolitan council, right?
Yes, they have council, and there's also what's called CTIB, which is the 5-county area that does transportation in the inner 5 counties there.
So, in your opinion, then, if I'm hearing you correctly, John, Rice County, Steele County, outstate counties shouldn't pay for light rail at all.
Well, we pay for a portion of it. I just, it should be small because obviously we do use it when we go up to a, Metrodome event or things like that. But I think the people that benefit most are those people in that 5-county area, the bars and the restaurants and the sports facilities and all those things that use that, and they have a taxing authority in that county region to be funding that. We, as the state, are responsible for, I believe it's 50% of the operating costs. But to see that capital money invested from outstate Minnesota is tough for me. And I think tough for a lot of the residents in Minnesota.
Yeah, but what would you say if the metro people didn't want to help fund our roads and bridges here in Rice County because they don't drive on them, they're in the metro?
Well, it has to be a sharing, but there's, again, as I said, we, of our motor vehicle sales tax, 40% of that motor vehicle sales tax goes toward light rail transit. So we are funding it, and yes, they are funding our roads, but you have to find a comfortable mix that you're happy with.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right?
That's the challenge, correct.
That comfortable mix. It's interesting you brought up the sales tax there because one of your constituents down in Owatonna called me and asked me to make the suggestion that 10% of all vehicle sales, when you purchase a vehicle, you pay a sales tax on it, 10% of that should go to roads and bridges, but I thought it was going there anyway.
Well, actually, I think it was in 2004, 2008, it was state constitution funded that it does. So actually right now, 60% of the motor vehicle sales tax goes into what's called highway user tax distribution funds, which funds all our roads from trunk highways to county state aids to municipal state aids to town roads and township roads. So there is, 60% that does go towards that. And then again, of the other 100%, 40% goes towards transit. So we are funding that through the motor vehicle sales tax.
Now, when you're saying transit, you're talking bus service?
Bus and light rail. 40% is it. Transit goes to both of anything considered as transit, and actually some of the outstate transit as well. In Rochester and Duluth and St. Cloud, they have some transit out there as well. So
yeah. So it doesn't go to our bus service here in Faribault?
There may be a small portion that gets into a funding for that. I'm not sure specifically, to be honest.
Yeah, that's okay. Say, I thought when we visited last week, because I asked you, if you had a bill in the hopper yet, was the first bill you introduced the Highway 14 bill?
It was the Highway 14 bill. So I've asked for $183.2 million to be funded for Highway 14, which would basically complete the 4-lane from Owatonna to Dodge Center.
How much did you say?
$183.2 million.
Wow. How many miles is that?
It's about 13.2 or right in that range.
Isn't that something? That's just mind-blowing to me. That's a lot of money for 13 miles of road.
It is a lot of money, yeah. I think there's a bypass, and it bypasses south of Claremont, so there's some right-of-way acquisition and some things we have to do there. But hopefully we'll get that. That all those bills will typically end up into a bonding bill at some point, and they'll have to pick and choose what goes towards that. But
so I have to ask you this, John. Go ahead. You were talking there.
Well, I was just going to say that the current bonding bill that we just actually passed through the Transportation Committee late on Thursday went ahead to the Finance Committee, and in that bonding bill, which was the bonding bill from 2016 that did not get passed, and that was the largest bonding bill in the Minnesota's history of $1.6 billion. And in that, there's about $85 million that's going into Highway 14. So obviously, if that would go through, then it would be less that would be in my bill that would be carried forward for the future of that.
But you're saying let's finish it now. Let's not dawdle. Let's not dilly-dally. Let's get it done. I
would agree. Doing it in a phased method typically costs a lot more money. I've got some numbers from MnDOT that
sure.
Cost approximately $3.5 million extra to divide it into 2 stages. So I think getting it all done at once makes the most sense, and I think it's a crucial portion of that highway. There's a lot of traffic going from Rochester with now the Destination Medical Center, connecting to Owatonna and off to Mankato. I think it's one of the largest stretches of major highways that's not 4-lane, so we'd like to see that get done.
Yeah, a lot of accidents there because of that, I'm sure.
Yep. Both safety reasons, obviously, and then just the economic development aspects of it as well. I know, and there's also another bill, kind of a sister bill, that actually is going to extend Highway 14 from Mankato, or actually not extend it, but connect some 4-lane from Mankato out to New Ulm as well.
You know where that is?
It would be east of Mankato, North Mankato. They're heading towards New Ulm. There's another stretch of where it goes down to 2-lane as well.
Okay, that's in a separate bill then?
That's in a separate bill from mine, yes. I just focused on my district and getting that, what I think is a much more crucial section of it, but everybody wants their section done and completed and to get it all done. So,
yep. So I have to ask you this, because you repeated this numerous times, at least on this show, about how you'd like to see an interchange up around County Road 9. Any thoughts about introducing something that would do that?
I think at some point, yes. I mean, this Highway 14 is my biggest concern, and that's the one I want to get done first. And when I get that, see that with some movement, then I'll try and focus that. Yes, because actually Faribault, the north side of Faribault with the industry now with Faribault Foods and their new expansion. I just was talking to somebody else looking at another facility in Faribault, and their thing is access to the north. They want an interchange up there. So at some point, I know that's on the cities. When I was as the mayor, that was on our high priorities. It's on Rice County's priority. So obviously we'll get that going as well.
Sure. Maybe you could tell us. I got a little ahead of myself, I guess, because most people, and I frankly couldn't tell people every single area that you cover in your district. Could you tell us what your district encompasses?
Sure. District 24 is all of Rice County, all of Steele County, a majority of Rice County, Waseca County, and Dodge County. So the large 3 cities are Faribault, Owatonna, Waseca, and then the smaller cities of Morristown, Medford, Nearstrand, Claremont, and it goes all the way down south into Ellendale, and that's the majority of the cities there.
So you have a lot of rural areas too.
Yes, I do. You bet. A lot of rural areas out towards Claremont there, and I go right up to Waseca, but I don't go much farther west of Waseca.
Right. So it's a good mix in your mind of urban and rural?
It is a good mix, yeah. I think, having the 3 larger cities is good. It's not all rural. I have a friend of mine up here who's Senate District 1, Mark Johnson, and I think Mark's got he's got one of the larger districts in the state. And I was talking to you about the number of parades. I had to do 7.
Yeah.
He had to do 37 parades. So he's got a big district up there. So yeah, I think Faribault has our District 24 has a good mix, and there's a lot of similar other districts like that, in southeastern and southwestern Minnesota.
And Senator John Jasinski is our guest on AM Minnesota. I know you knew about the whole process up there. I mean, being a mayor and all, so you knew how the process worked. But has there been anything that has surprised you in these first couple of weeks in office?
I'll be honest, I really didn't know the process as much as you may think. I had been up here and testified once on the flood back in 2010, so I'd been in the Capitol and done that, but the day-to-day operations I really wasn't that familiar with. So there is a learning curve getting up to speed, but a lot of good people up here that want to make Minnesota better, so it's a good work environment. Obviously, it's gotten into the partisan side than versus the bipartisan I was used to as a city council, so there's a little learning curve there. But as I said, I think most everybody heard they want to see things get done, and working together to get those things done is the important thing. So
nothing.
We're going to see more of that this year.
Yeah, nothing has surprised you, really?
Well, I think the overall, I guess the learning curve, there's just a lot to learn on, from Minnesota pollution control laws to highway funding to education to bonding. There's just so many things you have to get up to speed on. So yeah. I think just the information learning curve is probably the biggest.
And frankly, I don't think there's any way that any lawmaker can get their handle on every single thing. You're going to rely a lot on your staff.
Staff, yeah. I have one full-time staff who's a legislative assistant, and then I have one intern that works 2 days a week. But I think everybody kind of has their wheelhouse where they feel comfortable. That's where they specialize, and then try and get as much up to speed on everything else as they can. So I don't think I'll be tackling education issues because that's not my wheelhouse, but I will be tackling transportation and economic development and some of those state and local government things. But I think everybody has to work hard in what they feel comfortable in, and then just try and keep expanding your general knowledge of all the other areas as much as you can.
Right. And you'll be voting on education bills and stuff, and that's where you'll lean on the other experts there at the state legislature.
Yeah, absolutely. And just an example, this Senate File 1, which was the Health Care Reform Act, and we actually have a new senator, Scott Jensen, and he's from Chaska, and he's actually a doctor. So it's great to ask him questions, and we'll ask each other questions on different topics so we get up to speed. And he's been a great asset for me to get more up to speed on health care. So it's good to have that varying levels of people's experiences coming into the Senate.
And I have to say, having watched it over the years, for that to get done as quickly as it did was kind of amazing. Our majority leader, Senator Paul Gazelka, has really worked on getting that done as fast as we can. We've had many meetings, and actually to get the bill through the process, you have to have basically a meeting just to shuffle. I don't say shuffle, but you have to move the bill from committee to committee and make sure it gets heard and going through that. So we've had several special meetings to get that done. They had a conference committee that met for several days to try and get the differences between the House bill and the Senate bill ironed out and get that going. So there's been a lot of work on getting that done. And we said we were going to do that, and we're going to continue to try and get things done. That's probably the second biggest thing I heard on the doors when I was knocking is just get things done and don't wait till the last minute. Yeah, but you had to have cooperation all the way around to get that accomplished, and you did.
We have, yeah. We've been very good so far, so I hope we have a very productive session. I think people deserve that to get things done. So I'll work my hardest to make sure we continue on with that, and I think everybody else kind of has that same mentality. And I think if everybody understands we have to give a little compromise, it's not the perfect bill, and it's not the end-all, fix-all. We need to keep correcting, and it took a long time to get to this spot with the health care, and we're going to continually work to make it better in Minnesota.
So the governor released his budget thoughts, and obviously this is a budget session, so that's your number one issue you got to deal with, right? The budget. Correct,
this year, yep. You bet. So the initial numbers came back, I think, higher than we were comfortable with, and we're working on getting some details on that, but there's a lot of increases, and we just trying not to do those increases and try and get some tax relief for people out there.
So there's a $1.4 billion surplus. You'll have a better handle on this when the next forecast comes out here. Well, this week starts February, so it'll be a week or two, right?
Well, and, again, new up here, but this February forecast is what I understand is very important. So we'll look at that February forecast and see where we want to go. And I know you obviously get some conflicting opinions here of spend more, tax more, and more benefits versus tax relief and trying to increase the competitiveness of Minnesota and having businesses and people stay here without high taxes. So that's obviously the point we have to massage to find out where everybody's comfortable at.
And that's what you heard most of when you were campaigning was, hey, let's give a little back?
Yeah, give a little back. Keep taxes are too high. Minnesota has like the third highest tax state in the nation, and so that's what I hear. But the other side up here will say we need all the taxes and we need all the amenities to get people here. So again, it's two different opinions. So we'll see what happens in come May.
Well, the way it's supposed to work, and obviously it hasn't in recent years, is that those differences of opinions lead to compromise, and that's the best kind of legislation.
Yep, exactly, and that's what we're working towards. That's what happened with the health care bill, and I think that's what will happen with the budget and the bonding and everything else. So yeah. I think you're right on spot with what will happen.
Yeah, if everything goes like the health care bill, I'd have to say you'd have a productive session, and that hasn't happened in a little while, John.
Well, I'm going to work my hardest to make sure it's productive, and I said there's many of my cohorts up here that would like to see that same thing happen. So I think you're going to see a push for it. I think everybody in this last election, with watching what happened not only Minnesota-wide but nationwide, I think you're seeing that people want to see that happen.
Well, how many new legislators are there? I can't remember the number. Is it 40?
We actually have 12 new on the Republican side in the Senate and 9 on the Democrats, so 21 new senators, which is roughly 30% of the Senate. And I don't know the House side, but that's 30% of the Senate is new. So,
and I would assume that lawmakers, freshman lawmakers like yourself, got the same message. Let's get things done and quit quibbling.
Absolutely. Yep, we hear that from all 21 of us. I know we had a introduction roundtable with meeting everybody and trying to get up to speed on everything, and we had all 21 of us there, and that was definitely one of the biggest things that everybody heard.
So the Highway 14 bill you have in the hopper, you have any others, or you have plans for others?
That's the only one that I've introduced myself. Actually, I take that back. I also put in funding, another highway funding, which is corridors of commerce. So we've requested $200 million for corridors of commerce, which that goes into a Highway 14 type. It's the money that funds Highway 14. So I'm trying to get at it every way I can from different avenues on how to get the funding for roads and bridges in outstate Minnesota. So although they're separate bills, they go towards the same end result of trying to get more money for highways.
Sure. And then next, would Highway 60 be next?
You've always talked about that. You think there's more traffic on Highway 60 than there is on Highway 14.
Well, I don't know about that.
Several times.
I don't have the numbers to... But, 60, you would think someday should be a 4-lane.
Well, we'll see what we can do.
A lot of kids go to Mankato to school, and they, drive back and forth.
Absolutely. I traveled that myself for 3 years going from Faribault to Mankato State.
Well, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, driving into the sunshine.
Yep, I do.
That can be something very interesting. I have a couple of minutes, Senator Jasinski. I appreciate your time. Anything you want to get the word out to people, how people can get a hold of you, that sort of thing?
Yeah, you can go. If you search or Google Minnesota Senate, there's a website that has all my contact information. I can also tell you my assistant's number is 651-296-9457. And you can contact him, and I'd love to see visitors coming up here. I've had several come through as well to stop in and see the office and get a tour of the Capitol. And we'll, we're busy right now, but we'll try and schedule in a couple of weeks of people that want to come up or email me. I'm sending out newsletters as well, and if you want to call in and get your name on that newsletter, we can do that via email, which is the cheapest method for us to get the word out.
Sure.
I think we're working on doing a radio show with you, as well as bi-weekly news articles in the Faribault Daily News and the Otana People's Press and Waseca County's News. So we'll continue to try and get the message out, and certainly feel free to give me a call.
Will people who have been to the Capitol before notice the renovations?
The last time, to be honest, I stopped up when Tim Murray and myself testified on the 2010 flood. I hadn't been in there much before that, other than like fifth grade when I came up for government, but
right.
It's beautiful. The renovation is fantastic. They've totally remodeled the whole lower level, which is more public meeting space now. There's a lot more public meeting space since the new Senate building, and all the senators are in a new office, and the House members are in the state office building. So there's a lot of more public space. They've renovated all the mechanical. It's been switched over to LED. There's security upgrades, and all the artwork's been cleaned up, and years of diminishing the brightness of the colors and things like that. They've cleaned that all up, and it's a beautiful building, that's for sure.
All right. Well, I'd like to do a show or two up there, too, if we can arrange that up in St. Paul. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Love to have you up, and we can make arrangements up here. So not only yourself or anybody else that wants to come up, make sure you get in touch with me, and we can arrange it.
All right. I'm going to let you go, John. Thanks.
You bet, Gordy. Thanks a lot.
You bet. Senator John Jasinski, our new state senator, joining us from the state capitol in St. Paul. And you heard him. It's quite a learning curve, I can only imagine, as there's a lot you have to get caught up on. Again, tomorrow, Jerry will be hosting the show. You're in tune to KDHL AM in Faribault.